Imagine an isolated island, just this jagged sentinel of rock, standing defiant against the endless churn of the Atlantic. Miles from any human settlement, there's this towering lighthouse. Its beam, a rhythmic pulse, a shimmering thread of safety cutting through the stormy darkness. It's a beacon, a symbol of human resilience against nature's raw power. But then one day, silence descends. The vital light just goes dark. 3 men, the guardians of that beacon, vanish, without a trace. Their beds neatly made, a meal left untouched, an overturned chair. The scene inside speaks of a sudden, impossible departure. Now, this isn't some ghost story you tell around a campfire, though honestly, it has all the chilling hallmarks of one. This is the real, deeply unsettling enigma of the Flannan Isles lighthouse disappearance, an event that unfolded over a century ago, and it remains one of maritime history's most enduring, most haunting puzzles. Today, we're not just recounting a tale, we're embarking on a true deep dive. We'll be sifting through the meticulous reports, the often conflicting historical accounts, and, the captivating theories that swirl around this case. Our mission is to excavate the facts, examine every shred of evidence we can find, and carefully separate the powerful myths that have grown up around it from the unsettling truth. We want to understand what might have truly happened on that remote, storm-lashed rock. So you're about to gain a really comprehensive understanding of a mystery that continues to intrigue generations. We'll offer you both the hard, verifiable facts and the compelling human stories that have become, interwoven with the mystery, making sure you're not just well-informed, but thoroughly absorbed by the sheer depth of this enduring riddle.
Yeah, what's truly fascinating about the Flannan Isles mystery is how it immediately captured the public imagination. It really did. From the moment news broke, it became fertile ground for speculation, just instantly. And even with official investigations, the profound absence of concrete answers left this immense void. It allowed so many compelling, sometimes fantastical narratives to take root and flourish. As we journey through the details, we'll look at the verifiable facts, yes, absolutely, but also at that powerful human tendency to fill in the blanks, often with something more dramatic, more extraordinary than perhaps the truth might have been. It's a study in perception as much as it is in disappearance.
Okay, so let's begin by truly unpacking the setting. Because to grasp the weight of this mystery, you first need to understand the stage upon which it unfolded, a place as untamed and relentless as the events themselves. We're talking about the Flannan Isles, a desolate, uninhabited archipelago grimly nicknamed the Seven Hunters. Imagine yourself standing there. We're roughly, 21 to 32 miles west of the Isle of Lewis, deep within Scotland's rugged Outer Hebrides. These islands are not merely remote. They're an ancient, starkly beautiful landscape, sculpted over millennia by time and raw geological forces. Their dark breccia geology, this rough, highly resistant rock formed from shattered fragments cemented together, it speaks volumes of their formation under ancient ice sheets. This isn't soft, yielding earth. It's a testament to immense crushing power. And their prehistoric separation from the mainland by vast stretches of open, often furious water just screams isolation. This inherent remoteness, this deep geological history, truly underscores their primeval nature, their untamed, almost unwelcoming character.
And it was on Isle Moor, the largest of these islands, which, depending on the tide, spans anywhere from maybe 17.5 to 38 acres, that a truly remarkable beacon of human ingenuity stood. This was the Isle Moor Lighthouse, a formidable structure designed by the eminent Scottish civil engineer David Allen Stevenson and meticulously constructed between 1896 and 1899.
Stevenson, part of that famous lighthouse dynasty. Incredible engineers.
Exactly. And its creation was hailed as nothing short of an engineering marvel. Just think about the sheer audacity, building a towering 75-foot white structure perched precariously atop a 200-foot cliff face in such an incredibly remote location with punishingly challenging terrain. It was an immense undertaking requiring monumental effort and skill. This was no ordinary light. It was equipped with a powerful Fresnel lens, a revolutionary optical system for its time.
Concentrating the light, making it visible much further.
Right. It could project a powerful beam visible for an astonishing 24 miles. It sent out 2 distinct white signals every 30 seconds, a deliberate, rhythmic pulse designed to ensure maritime safety, guiding ships through the notoriously treacherous waters that swirl around the Flannan Isles. Its purpose was utterly unambiguous, a steadfast guardian against the sea's dangers, a man-made heart beating in the wilderness. Yet the very location of this incredible human achievement presented a profound paradox. The lighthouse, a powerful symbol of human progress and a steadfast safeguard against the sea's dangers, was built precisely in a place that constantly showcased nature's overwhelming, raw power.
That's a key tension, isn't it? Man versus nature played out on this tiny rock.
Absolutely. The island's extreme exposure to the full, unbridled force of the North Atlantic meant it regularly experienced brutal sea conditions and immense heavy swells. This made its two landing places, one to the east and one to the west, inherently hazardous, often impassable. This foundational tension between a monument to human control and the untamed might of the environment subtly, almost ominously, foreshadowed the potential for a tragic clash. It created a truly compelling, almost foreboding atmosphere, a palpable sense of the island's wild spirit, setting the stage for the inexplicable events that would soon unfold, reminding everyone who dared to work there just how fragile human endeavor could be against the vastness of the ocean.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the isolation of Eilean Mor isn't just a geographical fact, it's a profound psychological state. Lighthouse keeping was, and still is, a uniquely demanding profession, a calling that requires immense mental and emotional resilience. And the specific environment, the sheer untamed nature of Eilean Mor, with its relentless wind, pounding waves, and ceaseless solitude, it amplified every single challenge inherent in that role. This raises an important question about human endurance. How much did the raw, unyielding power of this place, its stark isolation, its relentless, indifferent weather, truly influence what happened? Did it push the boundaries of human endurance to a breaking point, or simply provide the perfect, unforgiving stage for an already existing danger to manifest? In a sense, the environment itself isn't just a backdrop. It becomes a character in this mystery, an active participant in the unfolding events.
And the first hint that something was amiss came not from the island itself, but from a passing ship. A silent alarm bell ringing in the dark, signaling that something was terribly, profoundly wrong. It was December 15, 1900, around midnight. Captain Holman of the transatlantic steamer SS Archer was navigating his regular route from Philadelphia to Leith. He was approximately 6 miles north of the Flannan Isles, a position where the rhythmic, comforting pulse of the Eilean Mor Lighthouse should have been a well-known sight, a reliable point of navigation. But as he peered out into the black expanse, his gaze met an unsettling void. The vital beacon was dark.
Which is immediately alarming for any mariner in that area.
Absolutely. This wasn't merely unusual, it was deeply, profoundly concerning. A grave sign in those notoriously treacherous waters. A missing light was an alarm bell sounding silently across the miles, a harbinger of distress. Upon docking in Leith, Captain Holman did exactly what he was supposed to do. He promptly reported his observations to the ship's agents. However, this is where a critical administrative lapse, a systemic flaw, really, a bureaucratic oversight, allowed a crucial window of opportunity to tragically close.
Yeah, the communication breakdown is frustrating just thinking about it.
It really is. For reasons that remain frustratingly unclear, though perhaps influenced by the approaching Christmas holidays and just the inherent slowness of administrative processes back then. This vital report was not immediately relayed to the Northern Lighthouse Board, the NLB, the very authority responsible for the lighthouse and its keepers. This communication breakdown meant something truly staggering. A full 11 days elapsed between Captain Holman's initial sighting of the unlit beacon and the NLB being officially notified.
11 days. That's a lifetime in an emergency situation like this potentially was.
Exactly. 11 days of silence of an unlit beacon before anyone even began to understand the scale of the problem. This delay would prove to be a significant, almost agonizing factor in deepening the mystery. It not only left the keepers in potential peril for an extended duration, oblivious to anyone coming to their aid, but it also allowed crucial immediate clues to dissipate, just swept away by the relentless Atlantic weather, making the subsequent investigation far more challenging.
It highlights how human administrative processes, even those designed for safety, can inadvertently contribute to tragic outcomes. That gap, those 11 days, is absolutely crucial. It's not just a delay in response, it's a period where the unforgiving environment could further obscure any immediate signs, where the relentless elements could systematically erase the freshest tracks, the most recent evidence. It highlights the profound vulnerability inherent in such isolated postings, where a seemingly minor administrative oversight can escalate into a profound, almost irresolvable mystery. Think about the human element here. The men, if they were in distress, would have been waiting for a relief that was nearly 2 weeks overdue. This delay is a stark reminder of the isolation's inherent cruelty.
So consider the ramifications of that delay. 11 days of an unlit beacon before anyone even got to the island. And when they finally did on Boxing Day, the silence wasn't just deafening, it was deeply unsettling. It was December 26, 1900, when the lighthouse tender Hesperus, carrying Joseph Moore, the relief keeper, finally reached Eilean Mor for what was supposed to be a routine relief visit. As the Hesperus approached the island, Captain Harvey and his crew immediately noticed another disturbing sign,
one that screamed of something amiss: the absence of the lighthouse flag.
Another deviation from normal procedure. Flags were important signals.
Precisely. That in itself was highly unusual. The flag should have been flying, a sign of life, of vigilance. Despite their repeated attempts to signal, they raised a flag of their own. They sounded the ship's horn multiple times, its mournful blast echoing across the water. They even fired a flare, a brilliant flash against the gray sky. No response. Not a single reply emanated from the island. The island, which should have been alive with the activity of its keepers, appeared eerily silent, utterly devoid of life, a strange, hollow presence. Joseph Moore, a man who truly understood the weight of this silence, a man who shared a deep personal connection with the missing keepers, their families resided together at the shore station in Reesleet on Lewis, was the first to venture ashore.
Imagine the weight on his shoulders, knowing the men, knowing their families.
Yeah, with a mounting, almost suffocating sense of dread, he was the one who bravely stepped onto the East Landing, alone, to investigate this unsettling quietude. This profound absence of expected human activity, the unlit beacon, the unanswered calls, the missing flag, served as a powerful and chilling narrative element, painting a picture of something deeply, fundamentally wrong. This silence, rather than merely a lack of communication, immediately established an atmosphere of dread and foreboding. It signaled unmistakably that something profoundly wrong had occurred, that life had vanished. It was a chilling void where human presence, where life should have been, setting a somber stage for the inexplicable discovery that awaited Moore as he began his ascent.
What's particularly compelling here is how the narrative tension is built not by what's present, but by what's absent. It's a masterful use of negative space in storytelling. Moore's own feelings, his personal connection to these men, become a critical detail. His premonition, that gut feeling, that sense of skin prickling, adds a profound layer of human vulnerability to the unfolding mystery. It primes us, the listeners, for the unsettling discoveries he's about to make. You can almost feel the cold dread settling over him.
And then came the discovery that would cement this as one of history's great unsolved mysteries, etching it into the collective imagination. As Joseph Moore began his arduous ascent of the 160 steep steps leading to the lighthouse, he later recounted a palpable sense of unease. He vividly described his skin prickling with an intense premonition, a feeling as if the island itself was whispering warnings, its ancient stones holding dark secrets. And here's a particularly vivid and unsettling detail from his initial account, one that truly haunts. He described seeing 3 huge storm-black birds, like 3 drowned sailors, perched ominously on the light tower, silent sentinels.
Wow, that's incredibly evocative, almost supernatural imagery.
Isn't it? As he watched, these birds rose without a sound, fly out to sea, and disappear, leaving Moore with a profound shiver. It's a detail that adds a haunting, almost surreal quality to his experience, a visual premonition of the tragedy, a silent testament to the uncanny. Upon finally reaching the lighthouse, Moore made his first perplexing observation. The entrance gate to the compound and the main door of the lighthouse itself were closed, but notably, they were not locked.
Closed but not locked. That's odd. You'd think they'd lock up, especially if leaving, or if something was wrong.
Exactly. It was immediately perplexing. The interior of the living quarters was profoundly silent, an unnatural quiet that amplified the mystery, the only sound the distant roar of the sea. Moore observed that the beds were empty and perfectly made up, impeccably tidy, as if the keepers had simply stepped away for a moment and intended to return. The lamp in the light room was clean, its fountain full, and the blinds were drawn for daytime duty, indicating that the morning's work had been completed with meticulous attention to detail. Professionalism.
Right, the routine duties seemed completed. Everything in order.
Yes. The kitchen, too, was tidied, with pots and pans cleaned and put away, further suggesting that the cook had finished his duties and left everything in scrupulous order. However, amidst this almost unsettling display of routine order, distinct and unsettling anomalies emerged, creating a sharp contrast. The clock on the kitchen wall had stopped dead.
Okay, that's weird. A stopped clock always feels symbolic in these situations.
It does. A meal, possibly of salted mutton and boiled potatoes, lay untouched on the table, as if abandoned mid-course, its warmth long since dissipated. And even more jarringly, a chair had been toppled over, suggesting a sudden movement or disturbance. The only true sign of life, ironically, was a small canary in a cage in the kitchen, singing quietly, oblivious to the profound absence of its human companions. Further adding to the perplexing scene, a set of oilskins, essential waterproof garments for the harsh, often brutal weather of the Atlantic, was found hanging on its peg, neatly put away inside the lighthouse.
Ah, the oilskins. That's always cited as a key piece of evidence.
It is crucial because it suggested that at least one of the keepers, if not all of them, had left the lighthouse without proper protection from the elements. This was an incredibly unusual and deeply worrying oversight, given the severe conditions often experienced on the island and the common sense of experienced keepers. This mixture of meticulous order and sudden unexplained abandonment, the cleaned lamp and tidied kitchen juxtaposed with the untouched meal, the toppled chair, and the missing oilskins, created a profoundly perplexing tableau that defied any simple, immediate explanation.
It just doesn't add up easily, does it? Routine and emergency side by side.
Not at all. It immediately fueled intense speculation and deepened the mystery, as the evidence pointed simultaneously to both routine completion of duties and an abrupt, unforeseen, and ultimately catastrophic departure. Overwhelmed by his findings, Joseph Moore hurried back down to the Hesperus to report what he had seen, expressing a profound desire to leave the island and never return.
You can't blame him. Walking into that scene, utterly chilling.
Imagine the psychological impact, the cold dread creeping in with every silent, unanswerable question. That same night, however, duty called above all else. Moore, along with 3 brave volunteers, Mr. McDonald, the boymaster, and Seaman Lamont and Campbell, had to return to the abandoned lighthouse. They had to ensure the light remained operational, its vital beam once again piercing the vast empty sea. Watching and waiting through the long, silent hours of darkness, hoping against hope for a sign of the vanished men.
This scene, as Moore describes it, is truly the core of the enigma, the chilling heart of the mystery. The stark contrast between routine duties meticulously completed, the cleaned lamp, the tidy kitchen, and the abrupt, inexplicable departure of 3 experienced men forces us to consider dual possibilities simultaneously. On one hand, it speaks to professional diligence. On the other, to an immediate, unforeseen crisis so profound it shattered routine. This raises an important question. What extraordinary event or compulsion could force such seasoned professionals to abandon their posts so suddenly and in such a peculiar state, leaving behind the very gear that would protect them from the elements they face daily? It's a riddle within a riddle, a psychological puzzle that's as enduring as the physical one. It's what keeps us returning to this story, seeking an answer to the why.
The shock of discovery quickly gave way to the urgent need for answers. Who were these men, these guardians of the light, and what could have possibly led to their collective disappearance from such a critical, isolated post? The 3 men who vanished from the Flannan Isles lighthouse were James Ducat, the principal keeper, Thomas Marshall, the second assistant keeper, and Donald MacArthur, an occasional keeper. He was filling in for another keeper who was on sick leave.
Right, so it wasn't even the regular full-time crew entirely. MacArthur was temporary.
That's right. But these were not inexperienced mariners or novices to the harsh realities of island life. They were seasoned professionals, each with years of dedication to duty, entrusted with a vital responsibility for maritime safety in a notoriously unforgiving environment. James Ducat, born in 1856, was the principal keeper, kind of the leader of the crew. He had joined the commissioners of Northern Lighthouses in 1878, so he'd been doing this for over 20 years. He was a veteran, served in numerous lighthouses, including nearly 8 years at the very exposed Rins of Islay Lighthouse.
So he knew harsh conditions. He wasn't easily spooked.
Definitely not. He'd earned his promotion to principal keeper in 1896, a testament to his competence, reliability, and steady temperament. And to underscore his deep connection to this demanding profession, his wife, Mary Grierson, also came from a family of lighthouse keepers. It was in their blood. Then there was Thomas Marshall, the second assistant keeper. He had entered service in 1896, having previously worked as a seaman and an occasional lightkeeper. So he brought valuable maritime experience, known for his calm demeanor and dedication. And finally, Donald MacArthur, the occasional keeper. He was a Lewisman and tailor by trade, but he too was trained in lighthouse duties and had prior experience. He was known for his toughness and notably had a reputation for being bad-tempered, maybe even a bit of a brawler.
MacArthur's temperament. That detail often comes up in the more speculative theories.
It does. It's a detail that would later, perhaps unfairly, fuel certain ideas about internal conflict and personality clashes under intense isolation. Robert Muirhead, the superintendent who would later lead the official investigation, knew these men personally. Very well, actually. He had personally recruited all 3 of them and had worked alongside them for over a month during the lighthouse's construction in 1899, seeing them endure the brutal conditions firsthand.
So he had a personal stake in finding out what happened.
Absolutely. In fact, he had been the last person to shake their hands on December 7, 1900, just over a week before their disappearance, leaving him with a profound sense of personal responsibility and sorrow.
The fact that these were experienced, reliable, and well-regarded professionals makes their collective disappearance even more perplexing. It defies common understanding, and it truly underscores the profound human tragedy here. James Duquette left behind a wife and 4 children. Donald MacArthur, a wife and 2 children. Thomas Marshall, while unmarried, was survived by his grieving family.
That's the part we sometimes forget amidst the mystery, the real families, the real loss.
Exactly. This human element adds a poignant and deeply sad layer, reminding us that beyond the perplexing clues, there was a significant and very real loss of life and an unfathomable emptiness left behind.
What's particularly striking about their profiles beyond their competence is the implicit trust placed in them. These were men who understood the unforgiving nature of the sea, who had trained for emergencies, and who operated under strict protocols designed precisely to prevent such an occurrence. Their disappearance defies common sense for individuals so experienced in their roles, which is precisely why the official explanation, though plausible in parts, struggled to fully satisfy the public and continues to invite intense debate. It compels us to consider the limits of professional training when faced with the utterly unpredictable forces of nature. Was there something beyond their training, beyond their experience, that they simply couldn't contend with? That's the part that truly keeps the mystery alive.
With the men identified, the grim and complex task of official investigation fell to Superintendent Robert Muirhead. His findings began to paint a picture, albeit a deeply confusing one, full of contradictions that would fuel the mystery for decades. Muirhead himself arrived at Eilean Moor on December 29, 1900, just a few days after Joseph Moore's terrifying discovery, driven by that sense of duty and personal concern. His detailed report, submitted on January 8, 1901, meticulously documented everything he found, every observation, every shred of evidence. Muirhead's methodical examination began with the lighthouse itself and its immediate surroundings. He noted that the east landing place, the primary access point, was in perfect order. All ropes coiled and stored as they should be, buildings and stations in proper condition. No sign of disturbance.
So whatever happened, it probably wasn't centered there.
That's what he concluded. It suggested nothing originated from that side of the island. The scene there was one of meticulous, undisturbed routine, almost eerily calm. However, the scene at the West Landing told a drastically different, far more violent story, a stark contrast. Although Muirhead couldn't descend directly to the landing stage due to the rough seas, it was still too dangerous. He was able to reach the crane platform, which was still a considerable 70 feet above sea level. Here, he observed significant and alarming damage that spoke of immense destructive force. The iron railings along the footpath and around the crane platform weren't just bent. They were violently contorted out of shape and broken in several places.
Like something massive had hit them.
Exactly. Part of the railway track, used for hauling supplies up, had been torn violently from its concrete moorings, leaving jagged gaps. Even more astonishing, a massive block of stone, weighing over a ton, 20 hundredweight, had been dislodged from a higher position and carried down onto the concrete path.
A ton of rock moved by water. That's incredible force.
Incredible. Furthermore, a life buoy, normally secured a staggering 110 feet or 34 meters above sea level, well above any ordinary high tide or storm surge, had disappeared completely. Its ropes were found, clearly indicating it had been torn away by force, not just used. The mooring ropes, landing ropes, derrick ropes, and even the wooden box they were kept in, all secured in a crevice also 110 feet up, had also been washed away. Some ropes were found tangled among the crane legs, twisted and broken.
110 feet. That implies waves of truly extraordinary height and power.
Extraordinary. And perhaps most disturbingly, the very turf on top of the 200-foot-high cliff at the summit had been ripped away from the cliff edge. Based on this undeniable physical evidence of extreme weather and his deep knowledge of the keeper's habits, Muirhead formulated his official conclusion. The narrative that became the accepted explanation. He believed the man had been on duty until dinner time on Saturday, December 15th. He posited that Ducat and Marshall had gone down to the western landing to secure supplies or equipment, likely in the immediate aftermath of a severe storm. And crucially, he theorized that MacArthur, whose oilskins were found inside, had rushed out without proper protection. A grave error, perhaps in an emergency to assist them.
Seeing them in trouble, maybe.
That was the idea. Muirhead's official report vividly described what he believed happened. An unexpectedly large roller had come up on the island, and a large body of water going up higher than where they were and coming down upon them had swept them away with resistless force. However, this official narrative, while plausible given the immense storm damage, struggled to fully account for all the details, particularly that critical breach of lighthouse protocol.
Right, the rule about one keeper always staying inside.
Exactly.
Lighthouse regulations strictly mandated one keeper must always remain on duty inside. The fact that all three men were seemingly outside simultaneously represented a significant deviation. This left a critical explanatory gap, preventing the official conclusion from being entirely satisfying and leaving ample room for alternative interpretations.
It explained how they might have vanished, but not definitively why all three were in that exposed position together. That's the core issue. And this is where it gets really interesting, because Muirhead's theory does such a good job of explaining the how. The physical evidence of immense storm force at the West Landing is absolutely undeniable. It speaks volumes about the sheer power of the ocean. But as you said, it completely sidesteps the why were all three experienced, protocol-conscious keepers outside? This raises an important question. What could possibly justify such a serious breach of protocol by men who had dedicated their lives to strict adherence to safety? Was it a collective decision born of an extreme sudden emergency so overwhelming it transcended all training? Or was it something else entirely, something that forced them out or incapacitated them? That's the part that prevents the case from ever truly being closed.
And perhaps nothing demonstrates the power of narrative over fact more profoundly than the legendary, yet entirely fabricated, logbook entries that became central to the public's understanding of this mystery. It's absolutely crucial to separate what was actually found from the widespread, often sensationalized fiction that took hold. The actual official logbook entries from the Flannan Isles Lighthouse were last written on December 13, 1900. For December 14th and the morning of December 15, details like barometer readings, wind state, etc. were noted on a slate, ready for later transfer to the permanent logbook.
Standard procedure for keeping records between formal entries.
Right. And Joseph Moore's initial investigation confirmed that the work for the forenoon of December 15th had been completed, lamp cleaned, kitchen tidied. This evidence strongly suggested that the men disappeared on the afternoon of Saturday, December 15, after finishing their morning routine. These official records were recovered and meticulously examined. They were sober, professional entries, nothing dramatic. In stark contrast, a far more dramatic and sensationalized version of the logbook entries gained widespread notoriety, and frankly, it became what most people remember about the case.
The infamous storm entries.
Exactly. These fictionalized entries were often attributed to Thomas Marshall. They claimed an intense storm of unprecedented severity, winds shaking the lighthouse itself, despite the fact that no nearby ships actually reported such extreme weather conditions at the time.
A key discrepancy. If the storm was that bad, other ships would have noted it.
Precisely. They sensationally described James Ducat being very quiet, and even claimed that Donald MacArthur, the tough one, was reportedly crying.
Which sounds completely out of character based on his reputation.
Totally. Further entries suggested all three men had been praying, and then that famous, chilling final entry supposedly read, "Storm ended, sea calm. God is over all." The mention of the uneaten meal and overturned chair also largely originated from these embellishments rather than Muirhead's official report. Even the stopped clock, often cited as mysterious, was likely just a normal clock needing winding.
It started because it wasn't round, not because of some sudden cataclysm.
The debunking of these fictionalized accounts came much later, after they had already taken root in the public consciousness. It revealed no such dramatic entries were ever made in the official logbook. Many of these embellishments, it turns out, originated not from the island, but from a vivid 1912 poem by Wilfred Wilson Gibson titled Flannan Isle.
Ah, the poem. That had a huge influence.
Huge. And Gibson was possibly influenced by the Mary Celeste case, another maritime mystery shrouded in speculation and embellished accounts. It was artistic license becoming historical fact in the popular imagination. The proliferation of these fictionalized log entries, despite being comprehensively debunked, powerfully shaped public perception and added immensely to the mystique. This demonstrates a significant phenomenon. The human desire for dramatic and extraordinary explanations can often overshadow factual evidence.
We love a good story, even if it bends the truth.
Exactly. It leads to embellishment to fit a more compelling, albeit untrue, story. It's a powerful lesson in how stories, particularly those that tap into our primal fears and fascinations, can take on a life of their own, independent of the facts.
It tells us more about human psychology and myth-making than it does about what actually happened on Eilean Moor. This really reinforces how human memory and public imagination operate, doesn't it? We tend to remember the most dramatic versions, the ones that resonate with a deeper sense of mystery and human vulnerability, even if they aren't strictly true. It raises an important question about our collective relationship with truth. Why do we allow compelling narratives to eclipse documented facts? Perhaps it's because a clear, definitive truth, while satisfying, often isn't as captivating as an enduring enigma. The logbook fiction is a prime example of myth-making in action, where the story becomes more important, more memorable than the objective reality. It fills the vacuum left by the unknown with something emotionally resonant.
The official conclusion, as we've discussed, left too many questions unanswered, too many details begging for a fuller explanation. And where facts fall short, human imagination, with all its boundless creativity, steps in to fill the void. Here's where it gets really interesting, as we explore the theories that have tried to make sense of the vanished keepers. Moving from the plausible to the truly extraordinary, the most widely accepted and officially endorsed explanation remains the rogue wave theory. This theory, championed by Superintendent Muirhead, suggests the 3 keepers were swept away by an exceptionally large wave while at the West Landing.
An unexpectedly large roller, he described.
Yes, attempting to secure equipment or supplies when this massive, unforeseen wave struck the island with overwhelming force. The evidence supporting this theory is compelling and visually stark. The investigation found that significant, undeniable damage at the West Landing. Think about this. Iron railings twisted and broken. A section of railway track wrenched from its concrete moorings. A rock weighing over a ton displaced and carried down the path.
The sheer power indicated by that physical damage is hard to ignore.
It really is. And a life buoy secured 110 feet above sea level, torn away completely. Even the turf on the 200-foot cliff summit ripped away. This physical devastation clearly indicated immense storm power, suggesting the island had been battered by truly extraordinary sea conditions. The timing, afternoon of deck 715, aligns with them potentially venturing out post-storm. And that one set of oilskins inside suggests one man rushed out in an emergency without gear, maybe to warn or help the others.
Making a fatal split-second decision.
Despite its strong foundation in physical evidence, the rogue wave theory faces persistent counter-arguments that keep the mystery alive. The most significant, that breach of lighthouse protocol. Why would all 3 experienced keepers leave the safety of the tower simultaneously?
It goes against everything they were trained to do.
Exactly. Furthermore, the lighthouse door and main entrance gate were found closed, though unlocked. Would men rushing out in a life-or-death emergency take time to close the door behind them? It seems unlikely.
Good point. Panic usually doesn't involve tidying up or securing doors.
And finally, the complete absence of any bodies. Despite strong tides, it's highly unusual for no trace to be found after such an event. Despite these inconsistencies, the rogue wave theory remains the most accepted explanation. Its enduring plausibility stems from that undeniable physical evidence of storm damage and the inherent dangers of the environment. The raw power of the Atlantic provides a compelling, if incomplete, narrative. It's a stark reminder that sometimes nature itself is the most powerful force.
This certainly raises a profound question. Why do we, as humans, tend to cling to a theory even when it has glaring holes? Perhaps it's because it's the most rational explanation for an inherently irrational and catastrophic event. It grounds the mystery in the known power of nature, offering a sense of understanding even if it's incomplete. The alternative, delving into the utterly unexplainable, can be far more unsettling. It's easier to accept an act of God or nature than something entirely beyond our comprehension. And the physical evidence of the storm's fury is so compelling.
But what if it wasn't just nature? What if the intense pressures of isolation or even human conflict played a role? Beyond nature, some theories delve into the human element, exploring the psychological pressures of isolation and potential internal conflict. One dark speculation posits internal conflict, possibly even escalating to murder-suicide. The spotlight often falls on Donald MacArthur because of his known reputation for being bad-tempered, even a brawler.
Using his personality as a potential motive.
Right. Speculation suggests a violent altercation, maybe at the Western Landing, 2 thrown into the sea, the 3rd jumping from guilt or madness. However, and this is absolutely crucial, there is no concrete evidence whatsoever to support any claims of a fight, murder, or suicide.
Pure speculation, based on very little.
Exactly. Fueled by one keeper's known temperament and the lack of other explanations. Another human-centric theory suggests panic or collective human error. A series of unfortunate misjudgments. Maybe one keeper steps outside, strong wind slams the door shut, trapping him.
A plausible scenario in those conditions.
The others rush to help, maybe even lock the door behind them to stop it blowing open further, only to be swept away or unable to re-enter. The state of the lighthouse interior, the meal, the toppled chair, does suggest a hurried, unplanned departure.
A chain reaction of errors under extreme stress.
It highlights how, in that stressful, isolated environment, human error could lead to tragedy, even among experienced professionals. The psychological dimension of isolation is a critical underlying factor here. Lighthouse keeping was incredibly solitary.
Prolonged confinement and harsh conditions could exert immense mental strain.
Lighthouse madness wasn't just a myth. There were documented cases of mental breakdown.
Right. While not a direct cause of disappearance, the extreme isolation on Eilean Moor could plausibly lead to heightened tensions, paranoia, depression, or a breakdown. This makes theories of internal conflict or collective panic more understandable, even without direct evidence. A chilling reminder that sometimes the greatest dangers come from within the human mind.
What's truly fascinating here is how the source material gives us just enough of MacArthur's character to fuel these darker theories, even without explicit evidence. It speaks to our deep-seated fascination with the darker side of human nature, especially under duress. This raises a critical question. How profoundly does environment influence our internal state? Does extreme isolation amplify psychological vulnerabilities? The human mind, like the sea, holds its own unfathomable depths.
And then, for those who find conventional explanations unsatisfying, the door opens wide to the truly extraordinary. The Flannan Isles mystery has spawned a rich tapestry of supernatural and even extraterrestrial theories. The island itself, Eilean Moor, was steeped in local legend long before the lighthouse. Whispers of curses, sea spirits, fae folk.
The folklore adds another layer of mystique.
Fishermen historically avoided it, sensing something eerie. The Phantom of the Seven Hunters, a later piece of folklore, supposedly resented the lighthouse and lured men to their deaths. Other ideas invoked sea monsters, or even giant seabirds carrying men away, tales appealing to our deepest fears of the unseen. More modern yet equally unsubstantiated theories have also emerged. Alien abduction, for instance.
Taking it into sci-fi territory.
Or capture by foreign spies. Maybe the keepers saw secret naval exercises or weapon tests and were removed for secrecy. However, it's crucial to reiterate, there is no historical basis, no credible evidence whatsoever for any of these claims. Pure speculation.
Born from the desire for a more exciting, less mundane explanation, perhaps.
The human impulse for the paranormal is clearly at play here. The lack of a clear, conventional explanation naturally leads to extraordinary theories. This reflects our deep-seated desire to find answers in the unknown when logic fails. It's our way of grappling with profound uncertainty.
It allows the mystery to persist and evolve through the lens of the fantastic, giving shape to our fears of the great unknown.
So, what does this all mean for us today, over a century later? The Flannan Isles lighthouse mystery remains as captivating, as deeply unsettling today as it was in December 1900. We've explored the desolate beauty of Eilean Moor, the chilling discovery by Joseph Moore, the painstaking yet inconclusive investigation by Robert Muirhead, and the stark contrast between factual records and those sensationalized log entries. We've weighed the prevailing rogue wave theory against unsettling human factors, and even touched upon the wildly imaginative supernatural speculations. The haunting fact remains: no bodies of James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, or Donald MacArthur were ever recovered from the vast, indifferent ocean. And no single theory fully accounts for every perplexing detail. The breach of protocol, the closed doors, the untouched meal. The mystery persists.
This case powerfully reminds us of the sea's unpredictable, overwhelming might and the profound challenges faced by those solitary individuals who stood sentinel against its fury. It also highlights, quite dramatically, how we as humans grapple with the unknown, constantly seeking narratives to make sense of what defies logical explanation. The Flannan Isles is not just a maritime riddle, it's a profound testament to the power of a mystery left unsolved, a void that the human imagination endlessly attempts to fill.
The Eilean Moor Lighthouse, its powerful beam now automated, still stands as a silent monument to James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur. Its beam continues to guide ships through those treacherous waters, a beacon of safety in the vast Atlantic, forever echoing the haunting allure of the unknown. As you reflect on this deep dive, consider this. In a world increasingly filled with information where every mystery seems solvable, why do some enigmas, like the one from the Flannan Isles, continue to exert such a powerful, almost primal grip on our imaginations, compelling us to return again and again to the very edge of the known, forever drawn to the questions that defy easy answers?